RetroDaze.
Our first, and so far most successful Celebrating Yesteryear video to date was our look back at 5 forgotten toys of the 1980s. In that video, as with all of our content, we took on a topic that had the potential to contain many more than merely 5 items, and boy howdy did some of you let us know in the comments. Never let it be said that the staff at RetroDaze doesn't read and respond to the viewers' comments, and in this video we'll do just that as we revisit the 80s for 5 more forgotten toys using all viewer suggestions. When we talk about forgotten toys, it's important to note that we're taking this concept in 3 different ways. First, we're referring to kids who knew about and even owned these toys, having merely forgotten about them over the years. Secondly, forgotten in the sense that they're not talked or written about as often as other franchises. And finally, there are, of course, those of you who may have never known these toys even existed, which isn't exactly the same as forgetting about them, but does speak to the general obscurity of the properties we'll discuss. Tomy created the Parker Brothers distributed toy Spinjas, a unique spinning top battle game which was released in either 87, 88, or 89, depending on where you conduct your research. In fact, Wikipedia skirts the issue entirely by calling it the late 80s. Whatever the release date, the toy didn't get past its first series of 24 characters and didn't last long on the market either. It wasn't the first or last battle top game, but for my money it was one of the absolute best despite its short run and designation as a forgotten toy.
The world's fiercest warriors. Load 'em, launch 'em in the arena. The battle's on.
Spinjas were sold as a self-contained battle unit, with 2 character tops and 2 launchers packed into a case that doubled as a mini fighting arena. According to the official Spinjas instruction manual, the figures were split into 2 fighting forces, the Eliminators and the Dread Force. I'll go ahead and let you speculate as to which team are the bad guys. As with so many of the toys from the 80s, a rather thin plot of good versus evil helped to fill in some backstory for any kids who wanted more out of their top battles. Of course, if you were anything like most kids, you probably made up your own names and stories for the toys. Parker Brothers also released an enormous battle stadium for larger scale battles, and boy was it impressive. For those of you who do remember Spinjas and are unlucky enough to have either sold or thrown away your sets, you'll be sad to discover this is one of those toys that had a small enough run to cause the secondary market prices on eBay to be higher than you're going to want to pay. While there are other more contemporary and cheaper options such as Beyblades, for many nothing will ever compare to the unique designs and gameplay of Spinjas. One of the 80s toys most mentioned in the comments after our last video was Yesteryears, and with good reason. Though mostly forgotten, these toys were quite popular with fans given their futuristic robot designs, apocalyptic story, wind-up action, and interchangeable parts. In 1984, during the height of robotic toy popularity with the likes of Transformers and GoBots, Tomy teamed up with Marvel to create Yesteryears. The new franchise was actually a spin-off of an existing Japanese model kit-based toy line called Technozoids, or Zoids for short. Zoids featured giant robots and would grow to encompass anime series, comics, video games, and more. The Yesteryear storyline split away from Zoids, and Marvel created 6 mini-comics as well as a 4-issue mini-series. Unlike some of the more simplistic good versus evil stories we've seen, the Yesteryear's mythos is a rather strong post-apocalyptic musing. As Earth is threatened by deadly solar flares, scientists build 3 classes of robots to ensure mankind's survival. Protectors are made to restore Earth after the cataclysm, Destructors are meant to protect the Earth from alien invaders, and Guardians are there to protect humans who are in a type of hibernation until such time as Earth is made safe. Of course, the Destructors rebel. I mean, with a name like that, am I right? And after some time, the Yesteryear's mission and humans' existence become a thing of myth.
Staryear's Voltor, Ripsaw, and Clogger, each sold separately.
You're trapped, Ripsaw. Look behind you. I'm not falling for that, Clogger. You just did, Ripsaw. Come, Voltor. Ah! Ah!
Despite the enticing story, Staryear's only received one major release, with a mere 8 additional characters and 2 mini-comics after the first wave. The toys themselves offered a multitude of play options with tons of interactive elements. These robots didn't transform, but in many cases they had modular components, wind-up actions, and even some battery-operated toys like Deadeye and Cricket. Deadeye was a Tyrannosaurus robot that moved and shot discs using the bird-like remote, Cricket. Other toys in the series had movable weapons embedded in their chests, like Sawtooth with its buzzsaw. After the launch, there were rumors of an animated series entitled Staryear's Odyssey to be released in 1985, but like future waves of the toys, it would never come to fruition. In 1987, the television program Captain Power and the Soldiers of the Future released alongside a series of Captain Power interactive toys, action figures, playsets, and vehicles. Initially, both the toys and the show, which combined elements of live action and animation, were a hit. Captain Power and the Soldiers of the Future even reached the number 2 slot in syndicated television, right behind DuckTales. The winning gimmick with the toys was that they interacted with the live broadcast, as well as later VHS tapes, acting as light guns that could hit and be hit by the action on screen.
Hitting Captain Power versus Lord Dread.
I don't believe it.
Believe it, short human. The power of the future is in your hands.
The guns, which were in the shape of jet fighters and mounted guns on other vehicles and playsets, would even blow apart when destroyed. The toys themselves also interacted with each other so kids could set up elaborate light gun battles. The most impressive of these playsets was the Power Base, which had 3 segments that would eject when destroyed, as well as a further rumble feature upon final destruction. All told, there were 11 playsets and vehicles sold, which surprisingly outnumbered the figures, of which there were only 10. After sinking $1 million per episode into the first 22-episode season, Mattel decided to pull the plug on further production, even though the second season had already been written. On top of lagging toy sales, there was also public backlash from parents groups that felt the live-action elements were too violent and that requiring a toy purchase to properly enjoy a show was manipulative. In addition, despite the unique gameplay features, there were reports of issues with the toys not working well with the television broadcasts. There was a short-lived comic series in 1988, but once the television show was canceled, it was only a matter of time before interest in the toys waned as well. By comparison, Construx may be better remembered by most viewers as it had a much longer run than other forgotten toys, being sold from 1983 until 1988. The toy even had a brief resurrection in 1997, though when it returned for a third time as Mega Construx in 2017, the toy was arguably no longer distinguishable as its former self. Though most will remember Lego and K'NEX better, Fisher-Price's plastic construction sets generally held more building potential. Like Erector before them, Construx sets often had the ability to become a number of different final products. On the back of the Action Building Set box, it reads, "Each set can build many things." The 257-piece Action Building Set, for instance, came with pieces like pulleys, cranks, hinges, strings, suction cups, and more.
Constructs, you build. Constructs. Advance. Constructs. Command. Constructs.
So why was it discontinued? Well, Laurie Strong, a Fisher-Price spokeswoman, said, "It had been in the line for 6 years and we felt that, as a product category, it had reached its height, it was on a downward trend and we decided to discontinue it." Isn't that always the way with innovative products? Reaching deep into our bag of forgotten toys, we found a cartoon called Robot Man and Friends, released around 1985. Deke Enterprises produced the 90-minute television special that was later also released on VHS. Apparently, the original creator of Robot Man, British musician Peter Shelley, wanted to develop cross-promotional material, which led to the television special, as well as 2 battery-operated plush toys, Robot Man and Stellar, that played their own songs. Around the same time, with the help of United Feature Syndicate, Robot Man and Friends even appeared with their very own float in the 1985 Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade.
It's a great float. Nice to have a camera up there.
Despite Shelley's determination, Robot Man would only live on through Jim Medick's comic strip until eventually being phased out by 2001, at which time the comic strip was renamed Monty. As for the Kenner-made toys, by all indications, they weren't produced for very long and quickly faded into obscurity, along with the cartoon and books. Like our previous installment, we have one bonus toy that didn't exactly fit into our preconceived limitations for the list. Last time it was because the toy was too popular, and this time it's because the toy came out before the 1980s. Tomy released the Mighty Men and Monster Maker in 1978 alongside another version called Fashion Plates, which was ostensibly the version for girls. Both toys came with a set of interchangeable plates that you would use to create unique combinations of figures. The pieces fit into the base of the toy, over which you'd place a sheet of paper, and then use the special crayon to do a rubbing, thus creating an outline of the art. For added customization, the opposite sides of the art plates had texture you could use with colored pencils to fill in detail on your creatures or models.
We've all been staying up nights playing with this Mighty Men and Monster Maker kit. With this kit, your children can combine different chests, legs, and heads.
For any budding artist, these creative playsets were an entertaining way to start thinking about things like proportion, perspective, and textures. And so ends another list of forgotten toys from the 1980s. You know, even as we fill out our selections, we realize there are even more toys yet to be mentioned. That's where you come in. Please let us know what other forgotten toys we've missed, and if we receive enough suggestions, you can bet we'll return with a third entry in this series. In the meantime, which of these toys do you remember? Which did you own? Which do you still own? I would love to hear about it down in the comments, and if you enjoy our content, please consider liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and maybe even activating that ubiquitous notification bell. It really does make a huge difference. Let's meet again next week to celebrate yesteryear right here on RetroDaze.
Clicky clacky.